Figured I'd do a video on the big three revolvers, Freedom Arms, Magnum Research BFR versus Ruger Blackhawk, all in the single actions. Advantages and disadvantages of each. I'm just going to start from the top and work my way down. Freedom's Arms. This is a Model 97. They make the Model 97 in the 83. As you expect by the price tag, there's pretty much nothing better. The Model 97, I will tell you, the trigger, if there's one knock on it, this particular gun, this is the only 97 I've ever shot, but the trigger on it, I'd expect more for what it is. It's stiff. There's no creep. When it breaks, it's crisp, but it is a stiff trigger. I've never put the scale on it, but that's my one knock against it. The great things about it are the sights. You can change them easily enough. There's just a screw in there that holds the front sight on, so you can select whatever front sight suits your needs, your eyes. It's easy to change, and they're a little pricey, but you know it's worth it. Fit and finish on Freedom's Arms is the best that you're gonna find in a revolver world. There's nothing that compares to it. The Model 83 trigger is fantastic. I had a Model 83 before, and it was everything you would want it to be. I used to be able to shoot it very, very well because of the trigger. This one I struggle with just because the trigger is very, very stiff. The gun itself is accurate. If I sandbag it, the accuracy is fantastic. All you could want, but the trigger is something I do struggle with. But that's the Freedom's Arms. It has had the Colt type trigger cocking, if people are going to ask about that. One click back, and then the cylinder that frees up. So it does have the a Colt type feel to it. But yeah, Freedom's Arms. Most of you guys know about that. They're not that obscure. The next one on the list is Magnum Research. I had a Magnum Research BFR and 44 Magnum with a 4 5/8 inch barrel or 5-inch barrel, whichever it comes with. Really nice gun. I don't have that one any longer, but I can talk about it. The trigger guard on it was not as abysmal as the Ruger Blackhawk 44, or we should say Super Blackhawk 44 Magnum, with that square trigger guard that wraps your fingers. That's on these 7.5 and 10.5 inch model Super Blackhawks. The 4 5/8, 5.5 inch have the rounded trigger guards. But the BFR, that one, it's not as squared off as what the Super Blackhawks is, but it's not as round as what the regular Blackhawks grip is. It's kind of a hybrid in between. I would say if there's one knock on the Magnum Research, that I would say the trigger guard. It's a little bit too squarish for my tastes, and it adds a weird feel to it. But that's the only knock I can have on it. It's a solid revolver. It's not something that it's very heavy. Very heavy, I guess, is the best way of saying it. Even with the short barrel version that I had, it was a heavy gun. The 5-shot cylinder on it, you would open and load it just like a Ruger Blackhawk, where you would the loading gate opens and that frees up the cylinder. The good thing about that gun is that you could do poor boy's trigger job on it like the Blackhawk, and then you also had the front sights on it where you could change them. There was a screw that held the front sight onto the front of the barrel. You take that screw out, and you can change the sights. There are multiple sights that they sell on their website, and you can also use aftermarket sights if you either customize them, or what you can do is just buy sights that match up. with the bases that they provide. And I believe it's an aluminum base. It's very similar to the sight that Ruger puts on the Mark IV. In fact, I think I took one of my Magnum Research sights and I put it on my Mark IV to replace it. The other thing that Magnum Research really knocked out of the park is that they use Allen head screws throughout the revolver, which I don't understand why other revolver makers don't do that. Dan Wesson used to do that, and it was phenomenal. You don't get these stripped screw heads like you do with every other damn brand when you go, because they do loosen up once in a while. You can do blue Loctite or just go through and tighten them up on occasion. But Magnum Research really knocked it out of the park by using Allen head screws throughout the revolver. It's definitely the way to go, and they're the only ones that do that. I haven't, for the life of me, figured out why the other revolver makers haven't gone that route, but that is something that they do. Most of you know that Magnum Research, the larger calibers have 5-shot cylinders. I think that they're making a 357 now that has 6, I believe. I've never shot one of them, so I can't attest to that. I'd like to see them make a 41 Magnum, but they don't. And they do have steel frame. BFRs have steel frames, as opposed to some of the Blackhawks have aluminum frames. If you've got a blue gun that's not a Super Blackhawk, it's probably got an aluminum frame unless you have had something customized put on it. So that brings us to Ruger. Some people would say it's the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's generally the most affordable option that's out there out of them. I do have an example of the Ruger. This is a 44 Special mid-frame, they call it. But, you know, the Ruger, it's the roughest of the bunch for sure, but it's also the most affordable of the bunch. Solid gun for what you pay, or what you used to pay. I've seen lately that the prices on these have freaking gone up just like everything else. You used to be able to pick the Super Black, or I should say a Blackhawk, up right around 500, 550. It was not hard. I bought a lot of them throughout the years, around 300, 350 bucks. You know, they used to be a very affordable gun for what you got. The hammer on them rides a little high in the back. This is just a regular Blackhawk, but this has got a stainless steel frame on it. And as you can see, it's not factory. And that's brings me to my point about these Rugers, is they're affordable enough that if you get them, you can do what you want to them. You can, as I did in this one, I put in a front sight, I filed in that dovetail, and it really makes all the difference in the world. My biggest knock on Ruger and their guns has been their front sights have been so damn wide. What happens is when you put that on your target when you're shooting, it obscures the whole damn target. So it's really hard if you're into precision shooting to get it to where you want. So that's why the advantage of putting on like a rifle sight or something like that, you can really, it makes a huge difference. This one's got a dovetail, a hand filed in there, and you can slide different rifle sights in and out of that. Just a standard dovetail. It turned out really well. But yeah, just if you're going to do something like that, just make sure you get the right file for it. That's the big thing. And then practice on a couple pieces of scrap metal like I did, and it turned out really nice. Or you can take it to Gunsmith and have them do it if you don't want to. But these are 6 shots. They got transfer bar safety, so they're good that way. You can customize the hell out of them. I think that's the strongest point of them. Most people have handled their shot of Blackhawk at some point in time. A lot of just fantastic gun all around. The triggers are sloppy. You can do the poor boy's trigger job. You guys know what that is, and if you don't, you can YouTube it. Grips, you got all kinds of options out there available. These are Elkhorn Grips that a guy over in Minnesota made for me, Zach Peterson. Did an outstanding job on them. When I got them, there was a little bit of final fitting that needed to be done, but he makes them that way on purpose, and they're just, as you can tell, they're beautiful. You know, if I was a new guy starting out, I'd be This is actually, if I knew a guy starting out, I would absolutely steer him towards a Blackhawk if they wanted a single action. I think it's the best value by far and away. This particular gun, I shoot better than my Freedom's Arms. I mean, obviously, I've got a lot of work into this and put some effort into it. I haven't done a trigger job on it, but I shoot this gun as good as my Freedom's Arms. I can't tell you that the Freedom's Arms is more accurate. I've sandbagged them both, and the Ruger isn't better than the Freedom's Arms, but it stays right with it. I sometimes I shoot the Blackhawk better than I shoot the Freedom's Arms, and I'm sure that it has to do with the trigger. But the Ruger's no slouch either. For what you pay and what you get, it holds its own. So that covers the Freedom's Arms, the BFR, and then the Ruger Blackhawk. But there's one other variable to this equation, and that is the old model Blackhawk. And most of these that are out there, I don't know that they ever even made a stainless one, but this is, they call it 3-screw or old model. And these guns are a different animal to them own self. This one, as you can see, has that big wide front sight. I've still been debating whether I'm going to cut that off and dovetail it and put something else on there like I did the other one. There's probably what's going to happen at some point. But these old models, I'm here to tell you, this is one step down from a Freedom's Arms. The craftsmanship on it, the lock work, the trigger, fantastic. It's really a shame, and I understand why they did it, why they went away from this to the new model. This had to have been one hell of an expensive gun to manufacture in comparison to the new model. It doesn't have a transfer bar safety. This one has not been converted. So there's two solutions to that. Number one, you can send back to Ruger and they will put a transfer bar system on your gun. I have no idea what that does to the trigger. As it is right now, this trigger is as good as the trigger on a Model 83 Freedom's Arms. It is fantastic, and it just doesn't get any better. The loading gate on this, on most Rugers, you just flip this up and that frees up the cylinder. On the old model, it's like a Colt. You got to click it twice. The second way of loading or dealing with the lack of transfer safety bar on this is to load it with 5 in the cylinder with the hammer resting over an empty chamber. There's plenty of videos out there that show you how to do that, the proper way to load it, but that's the old cowboy way. They used to have to do that with the Colts. So that's it's nothing. It's not that big a deal. I don't think that anyone's going to have a problem with 5 shots versus 6. I actually kind of prefer it anyways, the 5-shot cylinders versus the 6-shot cylinders, because when you grab a box of ammo, the rows of 5, it just, I prefer 5-shot cylinders myself, or loading 5 in each gun. But anyways, this is the factory stocks. It's something else too. This is a factory stock in the old model, and there's no overlay. Like you get the new models, the grips. I don't think I've ever seen one where the grips really truly fit nice. It just, the level of craftsmanship here. It's got recessed chambers on here too. You can't see that here, but there's not that big giant gap. Now there's an advantage and disadvantage to that. The advantage is you can tell if your gun's loaded at a glance, but this is just higher quality. Freedom's Arms is the same thing. They have recessed chambers on them, and just a fantastic gun. So with Blackhawks, there's 2 different levels. There's new models and there's old models. And the old model, if you ask me, if you're a gun aficionado, and you like nice triggers and you like machined guns that are quality, you're going to be hard pressed unless you step up to a Freedom's Arms. The old model Blackhawk is head and shoulders above the BFR and the new model Blackhawk, if you can find them. And generally, they're not all that much expensive. I don't think the secret's out. I think people think there's something wrong with them, but if if you can find one in the caliber that you like, it's a strong option, but just be mindful that it doesn't have a transfer bar, so you're going to have to carry one, either send it in or carry with one chamber empty. Hope that helps people. If you get any questions, ask in the comments. Go from there.